Hey everybody, this is the very first episode of us talking about Avatar.
The Boy in the Iceberg. It was Season 1, Episode 1.
Season 1, Episode 1, S1E1.
So as someone who hadn't seen that before, what did you think?
I thought it was... you remember seeing it a while ago.
Wow.
I think it's a good, just like, intro to everything, because it's such a long series. I mean, long as in like 60 or however many episodes. I think it did what it needed to do, which it introduced all the main characters, and it gave them enough to work with where we kind of all understand their personalities.
Yeah, I think it did a good job of just showing who these characters are and what their base personality was, but it also didn't give too much because, you know, you get deeper and we get to what are these characters' motivations.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad they sort of hint at it, but especially with Zuko, they play him pretty straight this first episode like he's supposed to be a bad guy, which I think is a good way to go. We know who Zuko is, we know Iroh, we know Katara, Sokka, and Aang. That's what's important. And I took notes of some of like the smaller details I noticed. What I really like in this pilot is they sort of demonstrate this, and this is something that you see all through this series and through Korra that I think is important, is they, like in the very beginning, they demonstrate that bending is not magic. It's like a skill that you have to learn. And they also, through some subtler details, show that it's an extension of your body versus just like something you can do. Like you notice like Aang doesn't fly around, but you'll notice when he stands up, he uses air bending to sort of hoist himself up.
Yeah. Or
when he sneezed, he sort of flew up in the air. And I think that partly goes to show that it's like a physical thing, like I said, you have to train, but also something that he hasn't completely mastered himself.
Yeah. That was actually some of my favorite parts of the episode, and just in terms of animation that I really liked, was him moving. I think that was really beautiful. Like, it was something where, like, when it happened, I was like, well, that's, like, actually really cool. Like, it looks awesome.
The animation is good, but I can tell, especially since this is a pilot, the animation is noticeably stiffer than it will be later.
There were definitely parts of it where you could tell that was just, like, them moving around a still image rather than, like,
and it's done. I know exactly what you're talking about.
At the very beginning.
And there were other parts, too, where it was, like, usually when you're animating it, like, maybe you would animate the people getting larger or smaller when they're moving farther away.
Yeah.
Where they sort of just zoomed in on the background.
Yeah.
And it was sort of obvious. But I guess these were kind of techniques are corners you have to cut when you're making a pilot.
Yeah, which I get. Which I understand, so.
I also noticed, in the opening, Katara uses the phrase sexist, which I think is something you'll never see again in the show. I think that's a pilot thing. I mean, they bring up sort of, like, gender roles and stuff like that. But I think as Nickelodeon, it's kind of taboo to say the phrase sexist or any word that would have sex in it just because. And then, I think this is something I was talking about earlier, with it being a more Nickelodeon-controlled project in some aspects as well, is there was a few times of, like, sort of gross out or potty humor. We had, like, the big sneeze with
Appa.
With, like, all that green, the fluorescent green snot. We had like, I gotta pee. Everything freezes in the bathroom because pee. And that's something that I think you actually see throughout it a lot. But
I think you can have your cake and eat it too. Like, I feel like with that kind of stuff, it's like, I don't know, I kind of enjoyed it. Like, I thought it was funny.
In the beginning, it's more lighthearted, so it makes sense. But there are episodes where these things would very much not fit in.
Oh, yeah. But I think that's a test. I don't know. I thought it worked in this episode.
I also noticed some other things, just like how well the characters are designed and the colors are done. Because it's sort of like the classic thing with a protagonist, you want them to be red, blue, and yellow. Because the primary colors, they catch the eye, and that's what Aang has.
Yeah.
But also,
with a little bit orange.
Him being red and blue helps him stand out against all the waterbenders who are all blue. Especially in this introductory episode, which I think is a pretty smart idea. I think it's, like I said, overall, I would say it's a good pilot. It establishes everything it needs to. It has some foreshadowing, not a lot.
Like some knowing glances, like...
Well, there's some stuff where it's like, oh, I know what that's going to mean later. But it's very...
Like when Katara's like, did you know the Airbender? The Avatar? And he's like, no. And then, like, he makes a little face afterwards. So you know something's going on with that.
I'm also thinking, like, the scene where they show him, like, in the water, and it's sort of, like, sepia tone.
Yeah.
They do that whole thing. That thing has a whole episode devoted to it later, where it's like a flashback one.
Well, that's good, because I'm interested to know why that happened.
And it is one of the best episodes in the show. I don't want to... That's the other thing that's going to be hard with doing these series, is I don't want to spoil anything for you.
No spoilers!
But there are times where I'll have to sort of point to something that has later on, but not really directly reference it. I was also thinking about how smart of an idea it was that Sokka is not a bender.
Yeah, I
think that builds in with, like, it helps cement his role in the gang.
And it also helps cement the idea that this isn't something that everyone just innately can do by themselves.
No, I think they explain it where it's like there's no rule. You can be, it's sort of like Harry Potter rules. You can be a bender even if both your parents weren't, but you can also not be a bender even if both your parents were.
Wait, so there are people who cannot become benders, period?
Yeah. They're like you're either, I mean, this changes with Korra a little bit, but in terms of Avatar, if you're not born a bender, then you cannot be a bender.
Oh.
So that's why it's so rare that Katara was, she's the only one in her tribe. None of those other people can do it.
Oh, can do it. Okay. I thought it was just like none of the other people like even have tried to do it because they didn't like it.
Sokka is like, it's a physical thing that you're born with. And I guess, I don't know, it's kind of weird that they established that the whole South Pole, I guess it's supposed to be much smaller than the North Pole, but when you go to Earth Kingdom, you see that, you know, they try to establish, I think, that 30 to 40% of people are benders. Mm-hmm. And, like, people live in the Earth Kingdom and the Water Kingdoms that aren't. I don't think with the air that's a thing. I'm not entirely sure.
What I'm interested to see, and I hope they do this well, but, like, they can use Sokka as a way to, like, show how you can be successful without being a bender.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's his whole thing, and it also sort of is, like, they devote entire episodes to, like, his role, not just as, like, the warrior, but he's also, like, even though he's the funny guy, he's also the smart one. He's the one that comes up with plans. He's the one that sort of leads the group in a way. So he very much has a role to play in this gang.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting, those inner dynamics there.
And then,
I think it's a lot that could be explored.
The one other thing I noticed was, and I guess this is kind of common, is how it starts out not with Aang. Aang is not who we're seeing first. We're meeting Aang through our other main characters. Mm-hmm. What I think is kind of smart, too, because there is sort of a mystery shrouding his character. Like, we see Katara and Sokka, and I think we're supposed to more connect with them, than Aang initially.
Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, we'll get to this more.
But I mean, people will also like him because they're like, oh, he has the cute bison, he's really playful. So, like, a little kid would be like, oh, I identify with him.
He's a very good kid character because he likes to have fun, but he's also sort of like, he's not dumb, really. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, they're all really good voices, too. And I think they're all, like, I mean, maybe not, because I think Aang's supposed to be 12, Katara and Sokka are, like, or Katara's, like, 13 or 14, Sokka's a little older. I think they pretty much are played by people who are the age, which can be really, really hard to find.
Good
people that
voice actors that young. I'm mostly excited just to hear about cabbages. Like, I'm looking forward to that.
David has to sort of base his knowledge off of some of the grander things based off memes.
I do know memes.
You've seen about 4 or 5 episodes of the show, right? Yeah. But he knows the memes, I guess.
I do know some of the memes. I think, just like final thought, good opening episode. It would be a show I would want to watch more of.
Yeah, I think it's not the show at its best.
No.
Because
no first episode is ever a show at its best, ever.
It's a lot of exposition, too. And they somewhat sort of shroud it better, and obviously they do it in the intro as well. But it is sort of taking in a lot of information. So there isn't like a lot of, oh, this memorable character scene, this action scene. Yeah. It is just sort of a bit of an exposition drop. And I think it continues through the next one and maybe the third. I'm not sure. Gotcha. We'll see.
Well, yeah. Because it needs to, really until they start their journey. Yeah. It's the same with like a video game or any kind of quest narrative. Once you start the journey is when it actually starts getting interesting.
Yeah, I guess we're in the tutorial section, if you will.
Yeah. Still learning what all buttons do.
So that is The Boy in the Iceberg. Mm-hmm. What is next up? The Avatar Returns. I wonder what's going to happen there.
Will the Avatar return?
We'll have to find out. Yeah.
See you later.